Hi, everybody, and welcome back to Gen Z Reacts. I'm T, and today we're taking a look at, obviously from the title, you could tell, we're taking a look at the new Avenged Sevenfold album, and not the whole album, but there was one song in particular that kind of caught my eye, and that seems to, as of right now, have some of the most plays on YouTube. Now, that obviously could change by the time you're watching this, but it is the longest song on the album. It's called Cosmic. Now, I don't have the lyrics in front of me, and there's not an actual music video out for this, so it's just a visualizer. But I'm kind of excited because when you talk about new music coming out, you don't always think about the greats. You know, Avenged Sevenfold, Metallica, Gojira, Tool, other bands that just haven't been in the space for a bit or take their time with, albums and production. And so I've listened to the singles of Avenged Sevenfold, Nobody and We Still Love You, which both of those were wildly different from anything else they've ever put out in the world. So I'm kind of expecting that with this, but you never know. It could be, traditional, metal, or just, I don't know exactly their genre type. I would say heavy metal for the most part. So, but enough talking. Let's get into it. It's 7.5 minutes, the longest song on the album. So let's get into this.
From all there was before, we shut another door, but not a last goodbye. Fate has taken once again, a fight we'll never win, and time again we try. Left alone, I can't wait too long. Fate.
Already, it's widely different. However, I do kind of get I don't know, a feeling that it reminds me a little of like oh, which song is it? Is it A Little Piece of Heaven or is it Beast and the Harlot? I can't remember, but there was that one song, and I mean, it also kind of reminds me of um, Nightmare. Basically, the break that they have in there, it's really melodic. It's mainly played on uh, the top strings of the guitar. Well, top as far as like the bottom strings from where your hand rests, but they're technically the top. Um, the first, second, and third strings, to be more literal. But it's kind of got that feeling of like this is gonna be an emotional piece, and just from the way that it almost sounds like a digital pipe organ, which probably means that this is a synth being used. And if you guys haven't seen already, there's a lot of videos going around of them playing at a festival not too long ago, and you can see them actually using like I don't know if it was a MIDI board or what it was, or effects board for M Shadow's voice, because a lot of the newer stuff has some weird technical elements behind the vocals itself. But here we've got clean vocals on top of a digital pipe organ, almost sounds like. So it's got a lot of emotion going through it, and I'm kind of excited to see kind of what's coming next. So I'm gonna back up a little bit, and then we'll let it build into whatever it's gonna build into. That sound.
We love so many times and in so many lives. Sometimes we got it right. Pain, it found its way back in until we meet again into that good night.
Okay, so more things that I've kind of heard. First off, yeah, this is kind of, it almost sounds like a breakup song, or like the emotional pain after a breakup or heartbreak or a loss even. But I'm also hearing that, so the whatever the digital, so that, like I said, it could be a synth as well, but it sounds like there's a guitar that starts it off and then it ends up becoming like it's almost like it got a slight delay, if you know what I mean. And people who have experimented with synth type stuff on a guitar will kind of understand what I'm talking about. But basically, you can set your guitar to ring out the tone, but as soon as you strum in and it hits that note, it automatically changes it to like a synth tone. And kind of has like you can set different octaves and different harmonies depending on the amp or the digitals that you're using. But that's kind of what it sounds like, which is a really interesting kind of writing, or not a writing, a producing standpoint. From like basically you're just layering one tone multiple times, in a sense, when it comes to that synth type that they're using, I guess. I don't know. Maybe I'm just talking out of my ass here, but from what I've like played with on my own amps and my own guitar, that's kind of what I'm getting an idea of as far as how they wrote the song or how they decided to go, how do they decided to make the vibe, I guess, that they're making. Um, and the vocals now, Shadows is one of the greatest vocalists. You know, you could fight me, uh, but he's got such a dynamic range, and even nowadays in his, I wouldn't want to say older years. That's kind of offensive, to be honest. Um, but in his, more relaxed years, they haven't put out an album in over 5 years. And with the way that they are, his vocal range is even still amazing. Very low, along with very raspy, or he could do entirely clean, kind of like what he's doing here. But that man can still hit notes that he hit, 12, 15 years ago. So, like I said, he's got a dynamic range, and here is no different. He's all over the place, putting emotion and putting emphasis on certain words and ending them in a certain way. Um, I'm trying to think of the line that he said. I don't know. I don't have the lyrics in front of me, or else I would kind of go through and analyze that. But it's just so interesting the way that this is written compared to anything else that they've ever written. So let's go ahead and keep going. I'll back it up just a tiny bit, and we'll go from there.
Into that good night.
See the good night specifically.
So far as we chase through the stars beyond forever.
Oh, beautiful.
Follow you.
Okay, I'm sorry to stop it right in the middle of this beautiful solo. Wow. Man, this is awesome. This is the way that this sounds. Like, it is beautiful. The solo sounds super thought out. The tone and where it hits specifically, like that note that was held out, and you could kind of see me kind of react to it. But I believe that was a pinch harmonic held out, and then he found the note for that pinch harmonic and played it normally, and was able to kind of continue the solo from that point. And my God, is that beautiful. It seems so emotional and so, upbuilding. There's so much emotion behind everything that's going on here. And the way that the drums kind of just come in, it almost reminds me of, and I know I compare a lot of songs to a lot of other songs, and a lot of people will probably agree, but this reminds me a lot of oh, it's not, is it Cowboys from Hell? No, not Broken. It's a Pantera song, and I can't think of it off the top of my head. Cemetery Gates. God, why was that so hard? That's one of my favorite Pantera songs of all time. But that's what it reminds me of. A clean guitar at the beginning, the vocals coming in with emotion behind them, and actually not dirty. They're clean vocals. And then eventually, once you build up to a certain point, which is kind of what they're doing with the solo here, and they kind of do that in Cemetery Gates as well, then the metal part comes out. And the metal part kind of follows all the way to the end, and we'll see if it does it here. But like I said, this is a thing of beauty. They've put a lot of work into this, and you can definitely tell from the way that they're actually thinking these certain things through, certain tones, certain cues, and it just sounds so damn good. Like, I am extremely excited for where this is going. I'll shut up, and let's see where this solo takes us. There's that Pantera element. Just making the guitar scream. Ah. That is very Pantera type. I'm not kidding. If you listen to Cemetery Gates, there's that whole part in there where it doesn't sound like any of the notes are matching up, but then it works itself in, and there's a theory on that. I can't remember. There's a bassist who kind of proved that, where depending on the instrument and what you're playing and how you're playing, you can make somebody else feel like they're out of tune, or make the song feel like it's out of tune, or they're not in the right key, or whatever it is. But as long as you slide into a certain way, or you build it back into a certain way, it will basically fix itself, rather than like trying to like just automatically change somewhere or have a cue or something. You just kind of go with the feeling, and that's kind of what's going here, yet it's still super thought out. But this is super Pantera type here. In my opinion, obviously my opinion doesn't matter to certain people, but this sounds fucking awesome. Like, I will probably throw this on my metal playlist, or my rock music playlist, because they're not the heaviest stuff that I listen to. Obviously, I'm a metalcore, deathcore kind of person, but I have huge affinity and a huge love for older and even newer, modern metal. And Avenged Sevenfold is basically what started modern metal back in the late 90s, early 2000s. And they're still doing it to today. Like, it's kind of insane the way that this is going. So let's keep going. That was weird, that bass hit.
Dancing in the wind, and these roses born again. There you'll find me before the dawn of man. Your castle's made of sand. There you'll find me riding in the caves as fire lights the way. There you'll find me, mask of royal glow, dawn in Pharaoh's clothes.
Okay, so first off, this is not at all where I expected it going. But it does kind of remind me of Pantera's Cemetery Gates, obviously. But the piano coming in and that bass hit right at the very start of this piano part is a super interesting transition. And I don't know why exactly. Like, now I feel like I'm going to remember that forever and know that cue. And but I don't know why. And that's kind of like the question you got to ask when you're writing music, and even even playing music live, you got to know where your cues are, but what cue are you specifically going to take? Like I said, I'm in a band with my mom. We're an old style cover, or not an old style, a classic cover band. We play anything from basically the 60s to now, or the 2000s, I would say. And we, as 5 members in the band, five? Yes, 5 members. Sorry. As 5 members in the band, we all have different cues that we take, even in the same song. And so the specific cue in here, where that bass drop, bass hit, or whatever it was exactly, hit, that is the signal for the piano to come in. But the bass hit is kind of fading as it's in there, so you don't hear the piano right away. And so it's an interesting overlapping layered choice, but yet it's still like I'm going to remember that from now on. Anytime I listen to this song, I'm like, oh, here comes that bass hit, and then the piano comes in. And so now you're going to think about the song more, and it's going to get in your head. So it could have been just more of a, an earworm kind of thing where it's just kind of stuck in your head, or you're thinking about it all day, or whatever it might be. But I wasn't expecting it to go this direction. Avenged Sevenfold, you got me again. Because nobody expected nobody, and we still love you. To have the structures that they did, or the sounds, it's all extremely different, and so this is no exception to that, stipulation that they've kind of put on all their new music that's been coming out with this new album. And I'm all for this. It's very different, and different is not always bad. Different is sometimes very good. And in this instance, it is very, very good. Though it's really cool, and some of you should go and see it. They do a series on some of their older stuff where they break down everything. I don't remember exactly what the videos are called, but check them out. They're super, super interesting, especially if you want to know exactly how this band kind of built the songs that you grew up listening to, or you even haven't listened to. And now you'll go back, or you'll find the actual song, and now you'll know, hey, I kind of understand the way that they did the vocals here, or the way that they layered the drums, or the way that they did different guitar tones. It's a very interesting process on how they make music, and this is still going to be no exception. They might even bring that back eventually and do this kind of stuff with the new stuff. And I would be hands down excited for that kind of stuff when it comes to this album. I want inside the minds of Avenged Sevenfold when it came into writing and producing this kind of song, and why they put certain things where. And we still have almost 3.5 minutes to go of this, so let's keep going and figure out where this is going.
There you'll find me. Let it go. Rings of dust in eyes, weightless in the night. There you'll find me. Let it go.
Are you guys hearing that? So, if you've ever seen a horror movie, it has that specific sound of like basically a string on a violin being played on the highest string, and you're going up and up and up and up, and it's building as if something scary is about to happen. That is extremely cool that they put that kind of an element in a song specifically. And now there are other songs that do it. Mainly I've heard them in dubstep, I think, to kind of do a build up. But if you just listen back just a little bit, you can kind of hear it in the background. Just kind of listen for that specific tone. You hear it? It's so cool. Oh. It's getting higher. What? There's that synth guitar. I didn't realize until now how digital this is, which is honestly kind of fitting because the theme of the album is kind of the way that humanity's going. And so everything is digital. Like it kind of started off, had some synth stuff in it, had a guitar, and then we get into that heavy part. Everything's electric, heavy metal kind of thing. And then we get to the piano, which is kind of, I don't want to say it's old, but I mean, the piano was one of the biggest things back in, centuries and centuries ago. Piano's been around for a long time. And then we get into this build-up, and then all of a sudden, now we have a gigantic digital break, and then a digital version of what we heard originally with the electric instruments. And so now I'm kind of like, it's not what you'd expect. And that's what I keep saying on this song and the whole album in general, is that nothing is at all what I thought it was going to be. And so there are still almost another 2 minutes of this. I literally don't know where this is going at all. And it's very interesting where Shadows' voice is coming in and where it's singing. And I have no idea what the lyrics are, but I can hear the emotion behind them and kind of connect with them. And it's kind of like, I'd almost want to say like a caring and a nurturing kind of song, kind of almost like as if someone's trying to soften the blow to you, about telling you like, something happened or bad news or what it might be, but it's super soothing in a way. And I don't know why, but let's keep going. I'll back it up just a tiny bit because I want to hear that drop again. Digital. You can even hear some digital drums too if you listen closely. Right there. Auto-tuned vocals? Seriously. The visual style for the music video is awesome, though. I love this. Okay, so some of this, like I said, reminded me of Cemetery Gates by Pantera, but now I'm kind of getting like a... Man, who am I trying to think of here? There's like a lot of bands that tend to use, digital beats and digital tones and digital, just a bunch of like kind of almost like electro pop, dubstep, drum and bass, house, or even just synthwave. And I kind of feel like that's almost what they're going for here in a sense, but I'm not honestly sure. It kind of reminds me of like 2000s metalcore probably even newer than that, maybe even 2010s. I want to say Attack, but that's not right. I'd almost think of like early Asking Alexandria, where things are like digital in the beginning or even digital at the end. And it's super interesting that they took this route. Like I said, it's just different. And like I'm yet thoroughly enjoying this song. And it's a very interesting song. And I could see why they didn't put it as like a single, but at the same time, this is probably one of the better, I wouldn't say better songs that Avenged Sevenfold's ever released, but I would say this is probably one of the better songs that I kind of think on the album, but I could be entirely wrong. There are a bunch of other songs on there, and eventually we will get into one of the others. I really want to do a video on one of the other ones that's kind of blowing up right now. It's a great song from what I've heard. I've only heard snippets of stuff, so just because I like to give you guys an actual genuine reaction and analysis video. So let's finish this up, and then I'll give you my final thoughts. Ooh. Very interesting. Very, very interesting. Well, that is Cosmic by Avenged Sevenfold. If you liked the song, I mean, it's everywhere right now. So go ahead, give the album a whole listen. That album, I'm excited to listen to the whole thing. Man, I don't know really what to say about this song. It's much different from anything else that they've ever put out. And I know I said that multiple times, but it's very apparent. And that's one of the biggest things that I tell people when they're like, hey, is the new album any good? Is the new album something that I would listen to? And unfortunately, the answers aren't always yes, and they're not always no. Most cases, it's a maybe. It's a possibly. It's a I don't know if you would like it, but here's what to expect. And Avenged Sevenfold has kind of outdone themselves with making something different from someone of their stature. Like, it's very similar to how when Whitechapel came out and said, hey, there is a deathcore type ballad on our new album. And it's similar to Avenged Sevenfold kind of releasing this album saying, hey, this is entirely different from anything we've ever done before. It's been a good 5 years, but we're ready to come back. And so listening to Cosmic, Nobody, and We Still Love You, it is entirely, I want to know what's going on inside these guys' head. I can't fathom the ideas that, went through their heads when making a song and making an album as different and as intricate as something like this. And so far, a lot of people seem to like it. It is, their first album in 5 years. And obviously that album was not exactly the same as their other stuff, but it still had the roots. And with this one, it is very apparent that they didn't have any kind of roots as far as what their old albums were. They didn't let the old albums or any of the other stuff affect how this one was written. And now there are some hints of it here and there, like the solo in Nobody, and then some of like the heavier parts in We Still Love You. It's just, it is such an interesting thing, and I'm still trying to wrap my head around it. This album has become one of the most interesting things that I've wanted to listen to this year. And overall, I think I'm going to get a lot of joy and a lot of good time out of just analyzing, thinking about it, trying to mimic certain things that they do when it comes to the tones and the type of sound that came from this. And Shadows with his vocals on this is very interesting how there some of it's auto-tuned, some of it's pure, and at the very end both of those pieces came together, where they're kind of side by side in a sense, or one kind of complements the other. And I'm kind of excited to see where the rest of the album is compared to Cosmic, which is, like I said, the longest song on the album. But I'm ready for, this to kind of, start and listen to again. So, but thank you guys so much for coming in and exploring this song with me. I'm super ready to finally get back and make more videos. As you can tell, I got a new chair, and everything is kind of set up properly now. So, as always, I will see you guys in the next one. Goodbye.